Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 7 o'clock, so we will start. Firstly, from there, in my language, I would like to say the following, which is Jinji Wala Witabayan, which is hello and welcome, and we do pay our respects for we do acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging, and those from the lands that we meet on here today. My name is Darryl Ray. I'm the General Manager of Bermuda Consulting. Here with me, I've got young Matthew, who some of your people met when we were down here in Brisbane, and he will be talking to you about the finance side of things there, which is in this presentation. We'll hand over to Matthew a little bit later, and he can tell you all about himself. So we'll start further on here. So we have created a new vision statement for Wulli Wulli Nation Aboriginal Corporation. And this vision statement is something that we look forward to in the way that the direction that the organisation should travel. So the Wulli Wulli the Wulli Wulli Nation Aboriginal Corporation is committed to the preservation and the protection of the Wulli Wulli people's native title interest. WANAC, which I'll refer to from here on now, will also provide activities that will alleviate the poverty and suffering amongst the Wulli Wulli people that is long-term and sustainable. And it will work to increase the wealth of the corporation through strategic investment and by other means which will benefit the Wulli Wulli people and the Wulli Wulli Nation there. So what that means is that we're going to move forward in a strategic way to improve the lives of Wulli Wulli people through making clear investments there. So where do we want to be? We want to be a sustainable Aboriginal controlled organisation. This will be achieved through the application of sustainable organisational management practice. That sounds really big there, but in short, we want to make the right decisions, and we're about teaching people how to do that there. We want to deliver quality outcomes to our members, stakeholders, and others, and caring for country through native title, the welfare of members, cultural heritage, and being economically responsible through investment and other responsibilities. As I said before, we're going to invest money into good assets that will make us more money from there. So generally, that's what that means. So that's what we're focusing on through the strategic plan that has been developed. You'll be led by a board and leadership team. The current board I have met with, and they've got some great ideas there, but we're providing leadership to the organisation by making sound decisions. That's their key role there. And we're going to increase capacities, provide to the highest level of integrity and transparency in decision making. In other words, everything's going to be done by the book. We're going to consider things before things are made, before decisions are made. And it's going to be in the best interest of the organisation and you, the member. And we're going to drive an organisational restructure. So we're going to restructure the organisation to get the best benefits we can out of that there. So sustainability and current skill sets. Analysis has been undertaken, and we've looked at lots and lots of things about the organisation there. And the organisation is not currently sustainable, as it's been a loss for the last 5 years. No business can carry on like that. So we aim to protect the organisation's finances. The board members will undertake training to increase their capacity and confidence to lead the organisation. And once completed, the board will be able to effectively manage the organisation's finance and their other obligations, which we'll speak about very shortly. Governance structures. So a change will be made how the organisation is established there, how it's ran there. These changes will include, but not limited to, the establishment of a cultural heritage entity, a separate body that will look after cultural heritage. That's so important, not only to Wulli Wulli people, but all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people there. Investment. We're going to establish a investment company there. It's going to be called the Gamari Fund, the Wulli Wulli Gamari Fund. But these will fall under the banner of the corporation. So, we're not putting things out to the side or anything like that. It'll fall under the banner, but it's easier to have things set up in separate entities there. And that will look after the assets and the financial responsibilities of the organisation. Now, we have communication and marketing. This is very important. Yes, I know that they sound very big words there, but effective communication and marketing is the cornerstone of success of any organisation. So whilst WANAC already has a website and a Facebook page, the opportunity to market activities and events that the organisation will be hosting or involved with would be advantageous. In other words, it's going to tell people about what's going on there. And we also, to do that, we also need to expand the channels of communication and marketing. We'll be looking at different channels where we can market things there. Let people know what's going on in your neck of the woods there, so to say. It'll give members and stakeholders, and it's going to be tailored to age groups and what have you from there. It's going to tell people the latest information, the events that the organisation is involved in. In other words, you'll know what's going on in your organisation, which is very important. So there's a number of actions that need to be undertaken there. Excuse me. Now, to expand these opportunities, the following actions will need to be implemented. That the website is updated and managed by a communication specialist who will make the relevant changes to the information, advertise events, and other matters of interest. That further social media platforms are explored by tailoring information to various age groups and memberships, stakeholders, and others. So in short, the message is going to get out there, what's going on there. Now that concludes my component of the presentation there. We can take any questions. Please type those in. We'll give a moment for those to come in there, and the moderator will be able to tell me any questions which I can answer. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. 3 questions.
No questions coming. No one's sending direct messages.
Okay.
This is live. Good evening. My name is Matthew Jones. Now, I'm a consultant from Marlow Consulting, and my background, I'm a Torres Strait Islander from Darnley Island, so the eastern cluster of the Torres Strait, being from the Miriam Island group. Now, just because you may have missed it when Daryl started, so we were both engaged by Wulli Wulli to assist with preparing the strategic plan, and that's actually been funded by the federal government. Now, the component I'm talking about tonight is financial strategy, and we actually were very careful with how we went about this. So we looked at the financial documents that have been lodged with ORIC, and then also with those that have been prepared by your new accountants. Okay, so the key takeaways that we identified was that organisation is primarily dependent upon mining royalties. As Jarrell foreshadowed, as an organisation, you've spent more than you've earned for the last 5 years. And I've got a graph after this that actually shows that quite clearly. And fundamentally, if expenses are not controlled and properly managed, then Wulli Wulli will become commercially or bankrupt within the next 2 years. Now, what you can see in the screens there is a graph that I prepared, and it shows your cash at bank and the working capital margin. And I guess the key thing to take away is the fact that you can see them, both figures actually declining very quickly over the last 5 years. So there's actually not too hard to project that forward where it all ending at zero. So what do we do? Well, we identified 6 steps that we're going to take. One being to form a finance committee, which will sit and provide support to the board itself, to cap expenditures, to form an investment company. There'll also be an accompanying investment strategy as well, cultural heritage body, and some other actions as well. So the finance committee, so part of both the investigations that we conducted looking at the financial analysis, as well as the interviews with key stakeholders, identified that the organisation could benefit from having additional support there. So the finance committee would be comprised of a couple of members from the board, supported by either an external financial accountant or alternatively your existing company accountant. So it's really to be determined. Their role would also encompass things such as budgets, cash flow forecasting, looking at commerciality of agreements, purchases, etc., or even entering into other commercial arrangements. And from there, it would have to be a unanimous decision for it to be recommended to the board. So acting as another safeguard. And just because the group itself would be quite a small working group, we also thought that it would be advantageous to have an advisory body to the finance committee, where you could also add in potentially legal advice on a pro bono basis if we can find someone. And on top of that, also observers from the board as well. And that's just providing them with a greater exposure to financial literacy, understanding, and financial management concepts. So we also decided that we needed to cap expenditures. Now, if we look at the last 2 years of expenses that we've been provided, meeting, travel, the expenses were relatively high compared to other people within the industry. There was also, we're doing further investigations and benchmarking on legal for a couple of reasons to see what that actually looks like. So I applied a statistical model, and we don't have to go too much into it because I don't want to bore everyone else who's actually putting aside their Wednesday night to go into Greek letters and a mathematical formula. But what we identified, and you can see it in front of you, is that if those caps had been applied over the last 5 years, in the last 2, you would have actually had a surplus for the organisation. So if when you start turning around the organisation, that the caps are actually fundamental to be able to having that turnaround. And more importantly to that, it's also about providing the future financial capital to be set aside for the investment company as well, which is what we'll get to shortly. Okay, so one of the recommendations that came out of the commercial lawyers, Cleary and Hall, was that an investment company and trust were established to be able to utilise for intergenerational equity purposes for the Wulli Wulli Nation. we looked at that in further detail and made a couple of adjustments. One was that the investment company would be limited by guarantee, and the directors of the investment company, one would come from the Wulli Wulli board, and two would be appointed externally. So, and they would be from, professional lists. So looking at the Queensland Law Society, Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand, CPA Australia, certified financial planners, etc. And the key reason for that is that when it comes to an investment company, there's a requirement that people have an appropriate level of professional skill sets. And when we conducted a review of the existing board, they didn't actually match closely. And in fairness, most not-for-profits, their directors also would not align with the requirements to be a director in an investment company as well. So that also provides the opportunity for them to bring across their professional skill set so you can get a greater return. And that's actually quite important here. The investment trust would then hold both working capital as well as other assets held by the trust, and then would generate a return, and a distribution which would go, or a dividend or monies from the trust would be paid back to the Wulli Wulli community. Now, it's important here, we want to identify that the actual funds that would be returned to community would be distributed by the Elders Council as well. So there was key oversight here from the Wulli Wulli community with regards to how the funds actually are distributed, rather than people that are external to the community. Now, we did some more further research with regards to the actual initial sum of capital required. And one of the reasons we actually applied the spending caps to be utilised for the ongoing expenditure of Wulli Wulli Corporation was so that any savings that we had could then be reinvested into the trust. And over a number of years, we could actually grow it so it'd be an appropriate size. Now, the actual investment strategy for the company was namely that it would be aligned with the advice received by the professional body. And then on top of that, it would be conservative in nature. So that would actually be about preserving the capital of it as well. In addition to that, there was also another recommendation by Cleary Hall that we establish a cultural heritage body. Now, this organisation would offer services to the broader community, generating employment opportunities and also providing a return to Wulli Wulli as well. More importantly, we've also secured funding from NIAA for this to occur. Some of the remaining actions that we want to see over the medium term is within the next 12 months that all directors are to attend a workshop facilitated by ORIC, the Australian Institute of Company Directors, or another recognised registered training organisation on financial responsibilities and director duties. The existing company bank account delegations are ratified or modified by the board through a resolution, as presently the signatories are not covered by board resolutions, and that Wulli Wulli adopt the Australian Charity National Commission's National Standard Chart of Accounts to enhance transparency and to enable the organisation to be more readily benchmarked with their peers. In short, that means that the accounts utilised for expenses, income, assets and liabilities would be in line with your national peers. That brings an end to my, my component of the strategic brief. Are there any questions? Okay. Yeah, there will also be a recording available of our presentation tonight. And so if there are any questions that come through, or you just like the opportunity to have a look over this again, please do so. If there's nothing further, look, we'll close it off.
Rob Sutton has asked, how have you been engaged? Robert Saltman has.
Yeah, sure. So we were engaged by the board. Oh, okay. Yeah, righto. Okay, so we received a question asking how we have been engaged. So we were engaged through the Wulli Wulli board. Okay. Look, we haven't received any other questions. So
Hang on. One more from Sharon McQueen. So this will be funded by MIAA.
So when this actually goes about, and particularly with some of the actions in future, sorry, we had a question regarding how this is going to be funded. Yes, NIAA funding will be a key component and will be part of their capability grant.
Cool.
Last call for any questions? Okay. If there's no further questions, look, thank you very much for setting aside your Wednesday evening to listen to us drone on. Recording will be available if you want to have a look at it. Alternatively, if there are any questions, then please drop us a line. Okay, thank you.